The human body is just this incredible survival machine. But what happens, really happens, when it's pushed way past its limits? That's what we're diving into today, that terrifying, razor-thin line between life and death when we face extreme environments.
So what does happen when you're faced with extreme cold, scorching heat, or the crushing pressure of being deep underwater? This isn't just some what-if scenario. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty, the precise physiological breaking points, those moments where our systems just start to shut down, and the incredible science that's working to pull people back from that brink.
All right, here's the game plan. First up, we'll tackle how temperature can turn deadly. Then we'll jump into surviving in the water. After that, we're going to look at this amazing concept of healing under pressure. And we'll wrap it all up by reflecting on the body pushed to its absolute limits.
Okay, let's kick things off with something we all have, an internal thermostat. Our bodies are constantly, and I mean constantly, working to keep us in this super narrow, comfortable temperature range. But what happens when that system gets totally overwhelmed? Well, the consequences can be catastrophic. So you've got two sides to this coin. On one end, there's hypothermia. That's when your core body temperature takes a nosedive. On the other, you've got hyperthermia, where it skyrockets out of control. Now, they seem like total opposites, right? But really, they're symptoms of the exact same problem. That internal thermostat we were talking about, it's broken.
So, what is actually going on inside your body during hypothermia? It's not just one thing, it's like a cascade of system failures, one thing knocking over the next. As you get colder, your brain function starts to go, leading to confusion, even delirium. Your heart's electrical system slows right down, putting you at risk for cardiac arrest. Your kidneys go into overdrive, which sounds weird, but it leads to low blood volume. And to top it all off, your blood basically forgets how to clot.
Okay, so how do you fix this? Well, it's not as simple as just wrapping someone in a blanket, though that's part of it. Doctors use what's called a rewarming ladder. You start at the bottom rung, passive stuff, like insulation, just to stop more heat loss. Then you climb up to active warming, think forced air blankets. If that's not cutting it, you go internal with warmed IV fluids and oxygen. And for the most severe cases, the absolute top of the ladder is something called ECLS. That's where a machine literally takes over for your heart and lungs, warming your blood outside your body before putting it back in. It's incredible stuff.
Now let's flip to the other extreme, heat. And believe me, things can go from bad to worse fast. You might start with heat exhaustion, feeling dizzy, tired. That's the warning bell. But if you ignore it and your temperature keeps climbing into the heat stroke zone, that's a life or death situation. Because here's the terrifying part. At those temperatures, your cells literally start to cook. Proteins unravel, cell walls fail, your organs just start to shut down. And this is super, super important. A lot of people's first instinct would be to treat heat stroke like a fever, right? Grab a Tylenol or an Advil. But that is a huge mistake. They just don't work here because a fever and heat stroke are completely different things. In fact, those drugs can actually be toxic to a liver that's already under stress. The only treatment is rapid, aggressive, physical cooling, period. All right, so we've looked at the extremes of hot and cold. Now let's move into a different environment. The water. And yeah, hypothermia can definitely be a problem here too, but the real immediate threat, the race against the clock, is against hypoxia. It all comes down to the body's desperate, screaming need for oxygen. The World Health Organization has a really specific definition for drowning, and it's so important to understand. They define it as a process. It's not just about the final outcome. The process of drowning begins the second water messes with your ability to breathe. This is key because it gets rid of confusing and outdated terms like dry drowning or near drowning. It's much simpler. It's either a fatal drowning, a non-fatal drowning, or a rescue where breathing wasn't impaired. And the scale of this, it's just staggering. Globally, more than 370,000 people die from unintentional drowning every single year. It's just a massive public health crisis, and what's heartbreaking is that so much of it is preventable. So if you're ever in that situation, what do? First things first, get them out of the water. Now, here's the crucial difference. A cardiac arrest from drowning is an oxygen problem, not a heart problem like a typical heart attack. That means your number one priority is ventilation, rescue breaths. You have to get oxygen back into the system. It's so important, in fact, that if you're the only one there, the protocol is to do CPR for about 2 minutes before you even call 911. That 2 minutes can make all the difference. Okay,
Now, this next part might sound completely backwards, but it is life-saving information. If someone's been in the water for a while, you can't just pull them out vertically like you see in the movies. That can actually be fatal. Why? Because the pressure of the water has been helping to squeeze their blood vessels and support their blood pressure. If you suddenly pull them upright, all that support is gone, and their blood pressure can crash catastrophically. The correct way is a horizontal rescue, keeping them flat to prevent that collapse.
And let me be crystal clear about this next point. It is non-negotiable. Anyone who has been pulled from the water and needed any kind of resuscitation has to go to the hospital. Even if they seem totally fine, alert, talking, it doesn't matter. Serious complications can pop up hours later, and they need to be monitored by professionals. No exceptions. So we've talked a lot about immediate rescue from these extreme situations. But what about healing the damage that's been done deep down at the cellular level? Well, our final section dives into a really remarkable therapy that does exactly that. It's called hyperbaric oxygen therapy, or HBOT for short. And it's this fascinating field where, get this, pressure itself is used as medicine. Which raises the question, right? How in the world does that work? How can just putting someone in a pressurized room and giving them pure oxygen to breathe, how can that trigger such powerful healing? Well, the magic of HBOT really comes from a few different things working together. First, under that pressure, your body can dissolve a massive amount of oxygen directly into your blood plasma. It basically bypasses the normal limits of your red blood cells and just floods your tissues with oxygen. At the same time, it causes your blood vessels to constrict, which sounds bad, but it's actually great for reducing swelling, say in a crush injury. On top of that, all that oxygen is toxic to certain types of bacteria, and it helps calm down inflammation right at the source. And the list of what this is used for is pretty amazing. You have the acute, emergency situations, like treating carbon monoxide poisoning, or what divers call the bends, decompression sickness. But then it's also used for these really tough chronic problems, like helping heal tissue damaged by radiation therapy, or stubborn diabetic ulcers on the feet that just won't heal any other way. Now, of course, any therapy this powerful is going to come with some serious risks. You can't just ignore that. The most common issue is barotrauma. That's injury from the pressure change, usually in your ears, kind of like on an airplane, but way more intense. And believe it or not, you can have too much of a good thing. High oxygen levels can actually become toxic, potentially causing seizures. And the last one is a biggie. A pressurized room full of pure oxygen is a massive fire risk. That's why the safety protocols in these places are unbelievably strict. So when you step back and look at it all, from our internal thermostat just going completely haywire, to that desperate fight for a single breath of air in the water, to literally using pressure as a medicine, we've really seen the human body pushed right to the very edge. And that kind of leaves us with one big final thought. Humans, we're always pushing the boundaries, right? We're exploring deeper oceans, climbing higher mountains, even heading out into space. We keep pushing ourselves into more and more extreme places. So the real question is, as we do that, how is medicine going to evolve to keep up? How will we protect ourselves at the very, very edge of survival?